Well, I mean, you invite someone in, and not only do they bring us gifts of chocolate and beer, but they make sure that the label we've given them is accurate and current and up to speed. Top of the table, Tommy. Top of the table, Tommy of Calvary FC. Tommy Wheeldon Jr. How are you, buddy?
Oh, thanks. I thought I was a poor house guest when you'd first opened the show, and I didn't bring anything to wish you a happy housewarming. And this is more congrats on a great show. So thanks for having me on.
Well, hey, it has been a while. I feel like, geez, when was that? Are we talking like
in the summer, wasn't it? Yeah,
I don't even know. I think we started this in October. It had to be early.
Yeah.
And it's good timing because most of us have been vacationing and playing some long form nonsense all summer here. Good nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
But the beer fridge is finally just emptied. It's been backlogged. So it's the timing's impeccable, as is the timing of the this conversation, because you had a big win on the weekend at home against York. Martin Nash, your old assistant coach, and that crew. Another home win. You've been really good at home. It sounds like another great crowd. And top of the table indeed. This has been quite a change of pace. I remember 5 games in chatting with you, and it was like, trust the process, 5 ties in a row, some blowing leads late. And you're like, you believe, but there's some stress and anxiety that comes with believing that a process might work, but it hasn't yet shown that it has worked. It seems like ages ago when you hadn't had a win, you were 5 draws in 5 games.
And listen, as a coach, you dive into everything you can to, the players, to the psychology, to documentaries. And I think hadn't it not been for Ted Lasso, the cliche of believing and actually, the feel good story and actually just diving into the human element of our players and saying, look, we're actually trying something a bit different because we've had good players, good championship runs, and playoffs are being a bit different. Here we've got 2 different trophies to chase. We've got the league, which gets you into CONCACAF as well, and a new trophy, and then you've got a new playoff format. So the placing actually really does help the first and second place because it gives you a couple of bites of the cherry to get into that final. So we wanted to trust the process, but in doing so, I had to get into the hearts and minds of our leadership group, guys that have been with us for a while, like Marco and Sergio, guys that are starting to be here 2-3, like your Dan Klomps and your Moosies, and ask them, how are they feeling with the way we're trying to play? We want to be braver, and we're seeing that. Look, we give up a goal on the weekend because we're trying to play, and 1 of 2 maybe goals, but we've scored more goals this year than anybody else playing that football. So when it comes to sticking to your principles, we've done exactly that.
It's got to be exciting. I mean, there was a couple of years that were scrambled by a pandemic that messed up everything. And, to see healthy crowds, I think almost all season, it's been really good. I mean, are you happy with where things are at? Has the fortress become even more difficult for opponents to come play in?
Yeah, I think we are now after that win, the best home team in the league. Our crowd, again, always biased, but you go from like my family sit in the 408s, then you go across the crowd and you just see familiar faces, you see new faces. And as you work your way around to the 109s and into the foot soldiers end, it's phenomenal to just see how much they care about it. Even at the beginning, you could feel their frustration. You're walking past after a couple of ties. We weren't losing, but a couple of ties, you could feel their frustration. Calgary's a winning city, right? It's no different. And we launched in a winning fashion. We want to make sure that we are a winning team. And, even you look at, Flames when they go off on, the playoff runs the season before last, people like that. The Calgary Surge launched now a winning season. It helps. The city likes winners. So we're trying to be part of that group.
For sure. And it's also, I think, a feather in the cap of your ownership group, yourself, everyone on the business side. I mean, it's a unique property. This is not like any other event in the city. It's like, well, there's Calvary, but it's kind of like, no, it's a one-off. This is not like something else. Kudos to you guys for that. The next game coming up is Sunday. It's Pacific. It is 3 p.m. at ATCO Field at Spruce Meadows. They've been a good side for a while here. I think it was really young in the first couple of years. Yeah. And then a title. They knocked off the Whitecaps a few years ago in Canadian.
Yeah, beat us in that playoff run, right? The ball in or out debacle, right? They're
right.
Good. Sometimes you need a bit of luck. But what I like about their ownership and the way they're doing things with the coach, James Merriman's a young Canadian coach, and he's, imparting his ideas of trying to play. And it's a brave league. You're seeing that now. Like I get reference, when I talk to people back home in England and people come and visit and they're like, I can't believe the standard. Like everybody's really trying to play in a brave way. And it's not like how you'd imagine Canadian football to be. People thought it'd be like hockey, dump and chase. And it's actually the opposite. We probably overplay in some ways, that everybody wants the ball to the feet. Everybody wants to try and play through the thirds. And it's good. It's making for some really good coaching. And then everyone seems to have this now 2 formations, one in attack and then one in defense. And I think it's really coming in leaps and bounds.
And it's funny because internationally, Canada, prior to this generation now that we're seeing John Herdman coach, it was we need to park the bus and get lucky and win 1-0.
Yeah.
But this league doesn't have many teams that try to do that.
Well, I think now you're seeing, like, I was talking to Nash after the game. He's had 2 3-3 games back to back. We've gone 3-0 against Forge, and then 2-3 we lost at Valor, and then we've just won 2-1. There's goals because there's more bravery. I think it's more a case of trying to win versus trying not to lose. And I love the bravery. John Herdman's been a big influence on that, because the way he took the Canadian men's to there, to Bev Priestman, the way she's created winners out of the women's team that won the Olympics. I know it was a tough run in the World Cup this year, but sometimes that's just a changing of the guard, and new players are now coming on the next cycle.
Does this year feel like there's been more change, whether that's philosophically on the pitch or personnel wise, than other years? I mean, you have made some in-season moves, and you always do, but is it just because we're in this season that it feels that way, and because you had to sort of wait for that payoff of the new system you're playing?
You have to adapt. I think that's the biggest thing in coaching. What was right 5 years ago is not right today. And if I don't adapt, it's like the Charles Darwin one, the species that adapt are the ones that are going to survive. And I think that's true in coaching. If you stay, you're always going to have your principles. This is how I want it to be done. But I think I always looked up to Sir Alex Ferguson with Manchester United. He was at the helm for so long, and people thought he was a tough leader, and he was. But he was flexible with his methods as he got older, to the way he managed Wayne Rooney to, say, Brian Robson, and people on here who know the Man United teams of old will know that. But you have to. I've changed over 5 years. We've also been in the middle of a pandemic. So what these young men have been through, you've got to be aware of that. And also how you challenge them is a lot different than how I would have coached Nick Ledgerwood, who's now our assistant. But I'm fortunate that I have guys like Nick Ledgerwood and Leon Hapgood alongside me that, that they, for what I can't get to or miss, they can get to. And I think that's what you got to do. It's a shared leadership process.
It's been quite the pipeline leaving here. I know Joel Waterman went from you guys to Montreal Impact. He's now had an appearance on the national team at the international level. Dominic Zator chased some dreams in Europe. I believe he's still playing over there, in Poland, if I'm correct?
Yeah. But he's becoming a cult hero there.
Arabim Pebble has been phenomenal, and we watched him last year. You sold him off to develop him. Victor Laturi, the same thing. I know it's everything is win-win-win in sports, but you've always really been faithful to that second purpose. We want to win, but we also want to graduate players. We're developing for higher levels. We're not going to put a ceiling on somebody here. We want them to go succeed elsewhere. And of course, you're financially rewarded if you can send someone to a much higher level. So
we've got a strategy, and this comes down to, got unbelievable ownership with the Southern family. I mean, Linda's a winner in herself in the way that she was previous Olympian. The type of shows that go on at Spruce Meadows is remarkable. Ian Allison, he's great to lean on for experience and advice. But when we talked about building a soccer club, it was a club, not a team. A team can win a championship. A team can go on. But in a salary cap league, you're always going to have a high turnover. We got $1 million to spend on players, and some players will max out and some players will sign for 2 or 3 years. But you have to be able to develop them and move them forward, hopefully. But in that time, you want to impact it. We've built now underneath it. We've got this under 21 system, which is basically 16, 17, 18-year-olds that we think could sign development contracts and then maybe future first team players. We've got the affiliation with Calgary Foothills with what my brother runs that one. And we've just re-signed Tom Field, which is like a farm team for us. And then beyond that, you look at, Mo Farsi's another great example. He's one that's playing well and consistently in the MLS. If we can get them onto more established leagues, we've done our job for the football food chain in Canada. And if we know our place in the food chain, we're always going to be an export league. But it doesn't mean that we can't give young, and I think the under 21 rule in the league is fantastic because it gives young Canadians a chance. I wanted you to talk about Gauthier Antigny as well as Willie Accio. They've been really big jolts of energy for your club. I believe both of them sort of like middle of the season type
entries into bigger roles. Like, what have they meant to you? And are those going to be names that we're going to be hearing about at higher levels down the road?
Yeah, and that was the thing with Willie was, when we talked about Victor going to Ross County, Willie was another one that went, and I just put in an inquiry as a GM. I said, look, I noticed he was on loan. What's your plans for this coming season? And they were looking at either loaning him out or moving him on. And there was a couple of clubs that was interested in, the championship level. And I said, well, can I pitch to him? And what I did was the Arabin Pepper one. Arabin was in that same one where we thought he'd play for the full season, but literally he's gone from almost signing for Forest Green and then going to Luton Town within the space of 3 months. We said, look, to Willie, if he comes back and does what he's doing now, he won't be with us long. Hopefully we'll then have the negotiation power to be able to finish a season. But we want to open doorways. Gote's, another one that took a little time to adjust, because as we got rid of Arabin, we brought in Gote. And we didn't do it a like-for-like replacement. Same age group, but young players need time. They need time to learn the system you're trying to play. We feel we've got a very tactical system, and it can be quite complex. So what can we give them that just makes it easy for them? And what can we give them that they can just play off the cuff? And what are the non-negotiables? And when we've done that, Gote's now hitting more of his stride. And that's what you see. And he's so exciting. And, I'll put Mael Henry in that bracket. Fans probably saw a little bit on this weekend and go, oh, I can see that now. But you got to have your futures, you got to have your nows, and you got to have your experience. I always think of 3 brackets.
Okay.
And Gote is certainly one now that we've started having some interest. And Willie, if he keeps scoring like that, there's not many wingers like that. You want wingers that can just attack people, score. But he's willing to work the other way too.
Speed with Gote. People have said he's Alphonso Davies quick. That's a statement.
That might have been me that started that rumor, but it was coming from our sports scientist. So Alex Potts, we do our testing, our speed testing. Like, how fast is he? And it was funny because the first one he did, it was like 34.5 kilometers an hour. I'm like, oh, that's decent. And we're looking around the room, and then I think it was a Doka Chima, big defender, got 35. And Gote's so quiet. He's like, can I have another go? I went, why? Well, I didn't go full out. We're like, well, you topped at 34.5. No, I can go quicker. So then he gets there, and I think it was like 36.5, maybe 36.7 at top speed. But he's built as well. So if he comes running at you like that, and that's what you see, and he can terrorize defense because they want to play him physical. He's strong enough to hold it. He's got really good first touch. We actually want to work on different parts of his game to polish him up. But yeah, he is Alphonso Davies quick. If you're
going to continue to polish, you don't have this kid too long.
No. You can't teach speed, right?
Right? It's one of those weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, you can teach a lumbering guy all kinds of other stuff, but you can't give him that speed. You had some big changes mid-season. Jose Escalante's gone back to Honduras, if I'm correct. Yeah. And Conte in a trade with Vancouver FC as well. Those were bigger deals from my perspective, but maybe every deal is part of a bigger piece of the puzzle for you. But just a thought on what, that's some pretty high end quality that departed. And yet it's timed in with you starting to play arguably your best soccer this season.
Yeah. And it was a tough one because when I did it, so you have to separate church and state as a head coach and a GM. Your GM, you have to think of strategy. You have to think of how which players are going to be for the long haul, which players are going to be good on the run in. And as a head coach, what do I need for the game against Pacific, right? So Kantav, wanted regular playing time, and Gote was starting to play. Fiskey's a great squad player that he'll come in and add value to the team. Excellent pro, and he was finding that we were playing Jose lower or higher, Gote, and he was finding a logjam of players. And so listen, won't keep you if you're not happy. He'd asked, approached about the possibility of a trade. Vancouver had called us just talking about players that they were trying to get rid because they weren't happy with the ones they'd got. Mickey's name came up, and in return, there was Mael Henry, who I'd heard a lot of and seen as a young player, and they weren't playing him. I'm like, but why would I trade? And then I had to go and do some work. And Oliver Minotel is our head of recruitment now, Tofa Fakunli, our assistant GM. So I had them work on, give me reasons, pros and cons. And what we found with Mael Henry was he's a futures. So if we're getting Gote to a place where we think we move him on, what's our next high potential player? And we felt he's one that we could filter in. And then we had the Willie Akio opportunity that we had to work in the back burner. And then Jose had, his family issue. He wanted to go back. And I know it was a bit of a crap show the way it came out, but it was well intended. I think he wanted to be with his family. He loves this football club. You know, you showed that with the way he plays, but he's played 100 games for him.
Day one guy, right?
Day one guy. And they're tough to say goodbye to, but you know, we've loaned him out for a year. It gives us time to see that is it going to be a permanent exit, or you know, maybe there'll be a return, but we don't need to make that decision today.
Yeah, fair enough. Last item for you. I saw an article online that I think if you want to dream, there's not a lot better than dreaming about Lionel Messi, if you're a soccer fan, coming to Atco Field, the Spruce Meadows, to play on the natural pitch here. It does seem like a dream. It's become much more realistic in the last month because his club in Miami has been on a heater. They're going to qualify for the same tournament. You're hoping to qualify. And at the top of the table, as you noted, there's 2 spots for CONCACAF Champions League. You can win the league regular season, or you can win the league postseason. You're in the running for both of those at this juncture, albeit early. And Miami is going to be in that tournament, it appears, as well. Crazier things have happened.
Listen, Kamal Miller, who plays with Lionel Messi, was in the 2018 playoff final against us for Reading United. Got sent off kicking Nico Pasquotti. He's now playing alongside Leo Messi. Life throws things at you very quickly. You know, Lucas McNaughton was playing for Pacific, marked him in the Nations League in the final, Leagues Cup final. Sorry. So I'm a dreamer, always have been. You know, the amount of times that you're told, you know, you couldn't build soccer in the city, you won't do this, you don't do that. We're doing it. You know, I would like to dream of the possibility to play against Messi one day. Why not? He's in our region. I think it's great that he's come to our region, and in 2026, when the World Cup comes through US, Mexico, and Canada, he's adding value to this side of the world, you know. And it's interesting now if you look at it, because you've got the Saudi Arabia and MLS that are now grabbing people's eyes and attention, and you'll always have your 4 big leagues, but we're growing, and you know, one day maybe Messi comes to Atco Field, and
I'm going to call in a favor on that day, Tommy, if you don't mind. I'll
Backstage
wear a yellow security shirt. I'll do anything just to stand and watch that one.
Imagine that. Like, have you seen like some of the things my brother Jay says it. He said, look, how many times have you actually watched his games? And I said, well, probably the big World Cup games. Probably, you know, you're tuning. And when he's playing for Barcelona, you'll watch the odd El Clasico, but it wasn't something like the Premier League I'll get up and watch.
Sure. Yeah.
He's like, now it's in our time zone. So even the other night, we watched the Forge in Halifax with a curry, and then we watched the Messi show right afterwards. And it's like, this is brilliant to watch him. Yeah.
Doesn't have to be 8 a.m. on a Sunday.
Yeah, exactly.
I was a big Barcelona guy, so you got to watch it a bunch, but it's magic. Like I don't really hold a lot of time for people that don't think he's one of the best ever, if not the best. It's like, I'm sorry. Like, everyone around him gets better when he's out there. It's not just a guy scoring goals.
And I'm telling my 14-year-old son now, the game's always about time and space. You know, and an old coach said to me, you know, a poor first touch is a thief of time. Yeah. Because you haven't got the ball in control. You don't know where the ball's going, and you're just creating chaos. So what Messi does is he walks, and it's like he's playing the game at a different speed. Yeah. It was like I seen someone on, you know, X this morning talking about, he walked for a minute before his goal. Yeah. A minute. He's walking around, everything's chaos, and then he recognizes the time to strike. He's like like an alpha male, like just going out for the hunt, isn't he?
Gretzky was the same way. Like the greats, they make everything look easy, and they know where the space and time is. That was the same thing with Gretzky. It's wild stuff. Good to catch up. We need to do it more. And fans that are saying, hey, this has been a great ride, like, tell us more about what's coming up, or people that still haven't been to a Calvary game this Sunday against Pacific should be a good one, 3 p.m. Anything you want to hammer on here as you're coming into this final third of the season?
Yeah, so actually this is a top of the table clash. You know, I think they're in second place right now. We've just leapfrogged them. We're level on games played. I think we're a point ahead. Very good team. They've led the league this year, and we've now just leapfrogged them. So it's going to be a big clash. And those who haven't been to Spruce Meadows, you don't miss out, because it's an experience. And I say that as somebody that went to the Shore Golf Classic this weekend as a Calgarian. I'd never been. I'm like, I have to go to these events. You know, I want to go to a Calgary Surge basketball game. So share the love in this city. I think that it's a big enough city. Get yourself out there, because once we play Pacific now, we're on the run in, and we once you're there, you'll come back. 3
home games after the Pacific home game. It's mid-September, and then 29th of September and October. I mean, you've got a lot of road games coming up. This is your chance. I'm going to suggest this is your best weather home game left that you got, but
Mhm.
it's Calgary. Making bets on the weather would be idiotic. We're not going to do that. We're not doing that.
It's been like hot. Like I felt like I've only worn my suit jacket once or twice, I think, through end of April through to now.
Yeah.
It's been a hot summer.
Yeah. Well, keep the team hot. It's been great to
Yeah,
keep
thanks,
tabs
man.
on, and hopefully we'll see you this Sunday.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Roy.